Hello, neighbors. Part 2 of the series, and a lot has happened. The infamous signs have been covered appropriately in various news and commentary outlets, so I no longer need to provide that background. While I do have my concerns with significant recent errors in reporting from the Broomfield Enterprise, I am grateful that they have been working to improve their editorial standards and commend them on a very well-written article. You can read all about it there, link in the description, and there's plenty of other commentary coming out as well.
One of the most authoritarian members of the Broomfield City Council, so it's not too surprising that members of the community would see her as an authoritarian based.
So, in summary, many of Heidi Henkel's constituents hate her so much that she is regularly called a Nazi. Something I have vigorously and publicly condemned, by the way. I prefer the term authoritarian because Nazi and fascist mean very specific things, and I find the way the terms are thrown around offensive to our Jewish neighbors and, frankly, my own family that fought against and suffered enormously under fascism. I also find the way my opponent is trying to use our Jewish neighbors as props offensive, especially as they are reeling from recent events. This is not about anti-Semitism, but instead about how she has turned our local politics into a circus, and her goal of making our neighbors feel threatened to cover her personal sins is utterly reprehensible. Equally reprehensible, she is calling me anti-Semitic despite my family's history, my outspoken support for the Jewish community after recent events, my very strong personal statement, which you can go watch right now, and despite her direct refusal multiple times to condemn the organizations and people she associates with that have been celebrating the violence and promoting anti-Semitism. I am also deeply disturbed that she has failed to address the concerns that her campaign or campaign supporters might be behind the signs. We desperately need an explanation of how she had a fully developed marketing campaign with graphics, email blasts, filings with the ADFL, and social media blitzes in what appears to be less than a day after the signs were discovered. If she cannot do this, then we may ultimately learn there are yet more campaign finance issues for her unless she can point to where she recognized an in-kind donation or properly recorded the cost of these signs. And yes, I said more campaign finance violations. While the complaints against me have been clearly debunked, multiple fully documented complaints have been filed against her campaign, and these are very publicly verifiable. She has both promoted and been promoted by partnering campaigns without the payments being tracked appropriately, and of course, she hasn't been properly recognizing in-kind donations for events and other support she receives. In lighter news, multiple neighbors have reported bizarre sightings around our signs. I haven't made an issue of stolen signs in general because we have so many placements it barely makes a dent. But I absolutely have asked everyone to make sure their cameras cover sign placements wherever possible. If you see any bizarre creatures sniffing around your yard signs, make sure to save the video for police and/or animal control. I have only wanted to focus on issues, and she has only wanted to spread slander and lies, so I will use the rest of the time to summarize where we are. I have worked to provide desperately needed transparency through a series of policy videos, clearly documenting my sources, and even walking through my analysis in detail. She has not directly addressed a single policy statement, presented a single policy position of her own, and the only video she could be bothered to present was a few seconds that did not communicate anything useful at all. Slow down. I see my opponent did put out one video. Maybe we'll finally get something about policy or issues. I guess not. And yeah, that's her. I had to double check because it certainly doesn't look like her, but I guess she even lies in a video where she doesn't say a word. Embarrassing for oh so many reasons. I have clearly shown how we can return money back to struggling taxpayers while having plenty of money left over to address our badly needed infrastructure. fought to retain air quality monitoring that is critical for our environment and our health, and that Heidi Henkel voted to discontinue, discussed in detail how we need to set priorities that will improve our community's access to water while avoiding vanity projects that will only further harm both the environment and taxpayers, and so much more. My opponent can only provide lies and harassment. We've gone through some examples of her brutal harassment and bullying of her constituents, including publishing constituents' emails on social media and participating in sexual harassment. These videos exposed her First Amendment violations as an active reviewer on a social media platform, and after years of civil rights violations, we finally forced her to step down. We've dismantled her unhinged lies about me personally and shown how her lies and harassment have created an environment where our neighbors are afraid to engage in local politics. We've exposed her corrupt support of vanity projects that give your money away to wealthy real estate developers and how she votes consistently against the environment. We all know the embarrassing circus she has turned our local politics into. I will continue to condemn the misuse of the term fascist, but she clearly is an authoritarian and undeniably a clueless narcissist that hurts our community. I understand why her constituents hate her so much, although it saddens me how her extremism breeds additional extremism in our community. In contrast, I am a lifelong independent focused only on our critical local issues and with decades of highly relevant experience and expertise. These videos put everything on the record. It's time to vote for a change. It's time to leave the circus behind and bring boring back. It's time to vote.